Today, I'm really excited to talk to you about this book called The Body Keeps the Score. Hey soul family! Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. My name is Nicole, and today I want to talk to you about this book called The Body Keeps the Score. I heard so many great reviews on the book, and it's literally called The Body Keeps the Score, and like, heck yeah, the body keeps the score. And at the time, I feel like it was kind of one of the first pieces of like literature that gained momentum, that was really starting to tell us that our emotions become repressed in the body. So yeah, I was so excited to read this book because I heard so many people rave about it and just go on and on about it, and it was in like mainstream media. I feel like it was a very popular book when it first came out. I'm sure it still is very popular, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do a book review on it. Now keep in mind, this is just my own opinion based on my own experiences. This might be controversial, but I honestly didn't love the book. Now, hear me out. It's not all black and white. I'm not saying I hated the book. I'm also not saying I loved the book. These are just going to be my experiences while reading the book. So I actually tried to read this book twice. The first time I tried reading it, I found it challenging. There are a lot of like bigger scientific words, so I had to like stop and like look up their meanings a lot. And the font is quite small, and there's a lot of words per page. So essentially, I just like chalked the first time that I tried to read it, like I chalked that up to my own lack of ability, my own issues with the book, my own inability to get into it, get stuck in. Then I tried reading it a second time, and while yes, there are many sciencey words in it, and I had to look up a lot of things still, and the font was still tiny, and there were more than 400 words per page, it was more than that. There was another reason why I was finding it challenging. And again, this is my own opinion, but honestly, I found reading the book to be kind of like re-traumatizing in a sense. And in the first chunk of the book, it barely discusses ways to heal. That was my own opinion. In the first chunk of the book, and actually most of the book, I feel like it's kind of like trying to prove itself. The book is trying to prove that the title is true. So it's like going through all of these experiences that caused people trauma, and then the aftermath and how it affected them and how it stored it in the body. And you know what? That does make sense. This book is literally called The Body Keeps the Score. It was one of the first types of literature, as I mentioned, to be released and like mainstream and be popular and be talking about how trauma can be stored within the body and how it can create other symptoms or other problems that are physical. And so I understand why the book was written the way it was written, and I guess that made my own assumption of the content of the book to be wrong. So I assumed that the book would be like on ways to heal, and it does touch on that. It has chapter 15, which talks about the ways to heal. So this chapter ended up being my favorite part, and I realized when I read it the first time that, so I was in it and I was like struggling to read it, and then I went to the contents and I saw, sorry, it's not chapter 15, it's part 5, Paths to Recovery. So it's like chapters 13 to 20. So there isn't quite a bit in here, but I saw these paths to recovery and I went straight to that section. And when I went to that section, I found myself loving it. And so then I recommended it to people because I believed that the whole book was like that, but that was just my own wrong perception. But so basically, I feel as though this book definitely serves its purpose and its place if you need proof of how the body keeps the score, let's say, which is literally what it's called. But if you are a sensitive person, if you're a highly sensitive person, I suggest not reading the first chunks of it because it could potentially re-traumatize you. All that being said, I wanted to read this piece from the book. It's in chapter 13 called Healing from Trauma, Owning Yourself, and it's in a section called A New Focus for Recovery. As the previous parts of this book have shown, the engines of post-traumatic reactions are located in the emotional brain. In contrast with the rational brain, which expresses itself in thoughts, the emotional brain manifests itself in physical reactions, gut-wrenching sensations, heart pounding, breathing becomes fast and shallow, feelings of heartbreak, speaking with an uptight and reedy voice, and the characteristic body movement that signify collapse, rigidity, rage, or defensiveness. So my biggest takeaway from the book, and you can save yourself from reading all the first parts that might re-traumatize you, and if you're interested, just skip to the second or part 5, is that, and we know this, but it's just another way of communicating it, is that if we do not heal our emotions, they will come out in different ways. So sometimes we can cognitively know something, and I talk to so many people about this. It's like we can cognitively know why we are reacting the way we're reacting. We can know the trauma that is linked to this situation, or the experience that is linked to this new experience, and the limiting beliefs that might be linked to it, but it doesn't change the fact that we have this emotional, this visceral, this body-centered reaction to this experience. So the book goes on to say, why can't we just be reasonable? And can understanding help? The rational executive brain is good at helping us understand where feeling comes from, as in, I get scared when I get close to a guy because my father treated me poorly, or I have trouble expressing my love towards my son because I feel guilty about something else. However, the rational brain cannot abolish emotions, sensations, or thoughts, such as living with a low-level sense of threat or feeling that you are fundamentally a terrible person, even though rationally you know that you are not to blame for another terrible situation. Side note, I just even in that blurb, I just bleeped out 3 horrific experiences that are just thrown in here as if it's nothing. And this is what I noticed with the author too. It's like he'll talk about these horrific experiences as if it's nothing, and while I do see the value in that, I just think that sometimes people cannot be in a place to hear that, but the information that he's trying to share about healing is still really valuable and really important. And so I think that the way he talks about certain situations kind of throws people off. And I just realized too that my book might be in the way of the speaker. Understanding why you feel a certain way does not change how you feel, but it can keep you from surrendering to intense reactions. For example, overreacting and harming a person that reminds you of another person, or breaking up with a loved one at your first disagreement. However, the more frazzled we are, the more our rational brains take a backseat to our emotions. So then it goes to talk about the limbic system, and then it talks about a lot of different modalities to help to overcome these things. So I do like that part of it, but I just don't think that we need to go through and relive the whole trauma over and over again. That's my own opinion. You can agree or disagree. So another thing I wanted to say too is that knowing that trauma is stored in the body, trauma is stored as a physical symptom, we must now learn to navigate our emotions and have a physical outlet to release it. So I believe that that's where things like yoga and stretching and exercise and things like that can be really beneficial, whereas journaling and meditating are still really beneficial, but they're not necessarily helping to release the trapped physical emotions, if that makes sense. I'm not saying it can't, and I don't know everything, and this is just my own thoughts in this moment in time, but it seems to me that in order to help to alleviate the symptoms, the physical symptoms of pain and trauma that we have, we must also tend to it in a physical way. Anyways, this one's a shorter one than normal, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this little book review, my own personal experience and personal opinion about the book. I think the content is really great. I think what he's sharing is really necessary, and I think it has a time and place, and also because two truths can be true simultaneously even though they might oppose each other. I do believe that the content in the earlier stages of the book might be re-traumatizing, and that might kind of act as like a barrier for people who want to heal themselves and who want to grow, because then they spend 12 chapters trudging through trauma and then finally get to the healing from trauma, and it's almost like they're burnt out. So maybe that could be like its own book, like just the healing modality, instead of needing to like prove that it's true, because now we know it is true, and now what do we do from it? Just like he had mentioned, knowing about something cognitively does not change the fact that it's still showing up in our lives and we still are having these visceral reactions to it. Anyways, if you have read the book and you have a different opinion or different experience, or the same opinion and same experience, please share with me your opinion and your experience of the book below if you feel called to do that, or send me a message or an email. I would love to hear your own experiences. I hope you're having a great day and you are enjoying your life and you are filled with joy and abundance and love. Sending you lots of love. I'll see you next time. Bye.